All right, we'll let this play out, and then we'll stop, and then we'll go to another.
Okay, cool.
I literally almost put the mayo on top of the hot dog like normal, and then I did it like a maniac and put it on the bun first. I don't know why. I was like, here we go. I was like, that was stupid, but oh well.
You're listening to the Janchi Show, hosted by 3 Korean American adoptees diving headfirst into what it means to be adopted, Korean, American, and more. And now, here's your hosts, Nathan, Patrick, and KJ.
Hello, everybody. It is the Janchi Show with your boys, KJ, Nathan, and Patrick. We are back with another fantastic episode for you. This one is part 2 of 2 with our interview with Mary Bowers. But before we get too far, fellas, how are you doing?
Still great.
I'm doing, a week later, I am doing just as good. I'm doing,
He's got two.
grunts.
If you don't get it, just go back and listen to the top of last week's episode. We're doing a little time travel, so it's a little weird for us, but for you, the listener, everything is normal. If this is your first time, definitely everything is normal. This is not special in any ways. We are usually a hot mess. But that's unrelated to anything. True. Nathan, what does Janchi mean? Why do we call ourselves the Janchi Show?
We are the Janchi Show because we are Korean adoptees, and we are the word Janchi means to feast, and we are feasting and celebrating on our stories and other people's stories. I know that sounded weird. They're feasting on their stories.
Oh no, I gobble people's stories.
You gobble their stories up. Well, that's true. I guess we could be gobbling them up, especially this episode. Spoiler alert.
Okay.
So yes, we are the Janchi Show, and we have a snack or drink at the end of the show, and not to be confused with Janchi, which is KJ's other show. We haven't said that one in a while.
It hasn't dropped yet.
It hasn't come out yet. Perpetually
working on it. It's percolating in my mind.
Yeah.
So I'm still workshopping it, trying to find some VCs to back me. You know how it goes.
True.
So yeah, like I said, this is part 2 of our interview with Mary Bowers, and we really get into it. We talk about a whole lot of things, but I specifically want to draw attention to the 16 for 16, which I know that Mary is wanting to draw attention to. She is going to be competing in a hot dog eating contest, international hot dog eating contest, for Korea, which I think she'll get into, or she got into. I don't actually know how the edit is.
A little bit.
She got into it
a little bit.
She's competing in an international hot dog eating contest on July 4th for Korea. And so it's a real kind of like not full circle, but intersectional moment, we'll say, for Mary, which we've talked about and we'll continue to talk about. But I just wanted to highlight her 16 for 16, like kind of personal goal, which is to
16 hot dogs in
16
10
hot
minutes.
Dogs?
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Bun and hot dogs, and it's for the 16 adoptees in Korea
who are part of her group that just recently got accepted. Their cases got accepted to be investigated by the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, which is what we also get into on this episode. So for anybody who might be joining this first time and wondering what part 1 was about, part 1 was very much about Mary's personal story that we dug into, and we got into that. And then this interview, this part 2, is specifically about her competitive eating career and what's going on with the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. So these are the 2 different things, and definitely want you to check out the 16 for 16th. That's super important. You can see all the links for those in the show notes, all the things that we talk about here in the episode. And as Nathan said at the top, you definitely want to stick around for our fun eating section at the end, which you'll feel like is part of the interview, but is definitely a food portion because we are all over the place and it's really, really fun. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is part 2.
Take me there.
Take me there.
That's interesting. Yeah, and there's so many different types of get to your family, defining the family thing. It's very true because everyone's story is so different. I mean, especially if they find reunion or don't find reunion or are still looking or don't want to look. I mean, there's so many different aspects to that. And then multiple, branches of those. Once one of those happens, you're looking, you found them, but then they don't want anything to do with you, or you don't want anything to do with them, and then the difficulty in communication and I mean it's very, very complicated, and I think it's something that a lot of people don't know anything about, and there's nothing out there talking about it. I mean, there's very little media that explains it. So that is something that Patrick started to talk about too. Is the TRC.
So that's what I wanted to ask. Yeah. So Nathan, I like you explained it as complicated, because I think that's what a lot of people, obviously with this dominant narrative of adoption, think about adoption and reunion and searching, is that it's just going to be easy. Like, you'll get reunited and everyone will be happy. And that's the end of it. They don't know about all of the struggle that you have to go through to even get to the point of like making a decision that I want to do this, and all of the roadblocks and complications that come with or come up because of this process of adoption that people just don't know about if they're not part of this community. And right now, Peter Muller, he leads a group of Danish adoptees who have been doing some really incredible work to not only petition the government, but demand action to look into a number of cases where the stories that have been told, the paperwork that's been provided has been falsified, and looking into those things and having the government actually hold themselves and the agencies accountable for those actions. And the way that they're doing that, the Korean government has what's called the Truth and Reconciliation Committee, who is going through this process right now to address some of these cases. Actually, today, as of this recording, there was a news release that just went out that they are looking into, I think, 100 more of the cases.
No, 200. 230.
Okay.
230 more cases.
So, perfect. And so, great news that they are going through this. I think I read in the article that they do expect to look into every single one of the cases. They're going in by the order of how they've been submitted, which is also great news. And I know, Mary, that's one of the things that you wanted to come on and talk a little bit about, because you are one of the adoptees from the United States who has submitted that work. So I just wanted to know if you wanted to share a little bit more about that journey, that experience with our listeners who may not know very much about this process right now.
Yeah, so that's been like an absolute head trip. Sorry, I'm a little tired because it's been what, 2 days since that announcement came out, and so your body has these responses, and I'm like, why am I crying at work in the break room? I'm actually happy, but then like my body's telling me I'm terrified and sad, and then there's kind of this hypervigilance that kicks in, and it's like, okay, it feels like it should be a victory, but now the real work starts. So the way that I got involved with the investigation is because I was already embarking on that very naive, like puppy running through the flower fields birth search. And over the course of about a year and a half, I kept hitting those roadblocks that you were referring to. So I requested certain documents from the adoption agency. They're like, oh, well, you're not allowed to have that record. That record doesn't exist. We don't know where the record is. Oh, but by the way, your parents are both alive and living together. They're now a married couple. And I'm like, you can't tell me both of these things while also at the same time, my adoption file says I am an orphan. So what is the truth here? Because they can't both be true. I cannot have married living parents and also be an orphan. Right. So that was one of the red flags. And as part of that process, I was like, I'm going to go to Busan, where my paperwork says I was born. While I was there, I happened to be at a coffee shop, and I looked across the street, and there was a social services agency. So I was like, I'm just going to sit here, Google search the term social agencies, social welfare, Busan. And all of the cases, all of the articles came up on another case, the Brothers Home case, while I was looking into this. So for those who don't know, Brothers Home was a forced labor camp, and adoption was like their side hustle. since last August, I think in December, right around the same time that the last of the TRC cases were submitted, Brothers Home got a ruling. People were found guilty for horrific abuse, forced labor, abuse of children, abuse of disabled people. And so in those articles, I recognized the name of the person who had signed every single one of my papers.
Wow.
At that time, the Associated Press had tied him to the trafficking of, I think, 7 different children. Since then, that number has grown definitively to 19 children. I don't think I'm going to be the special exception. So that was my trip to Busan. I thought it would be just, take some time at the beach, find out where I came from, eat some fish,
chill at a coffee shop.
Yeah, chill at a coffee shop. And but that coffee shop, it was nice. I mean, they advertised that they had exceptionally nice toilets, which it's always it's like a sign on the front of the cafe, which like I would give them like a 7 out of 10 stars on the toilet.
I like it.
But it was actually kind of good to have the comic relief of like, okay, well, it's an oh shit moment. I have a nice toilet to go to right now.
Fortunately, it's exceptionally clean.
Yeah.
Wow.
So at that point, I started digging more into my case, asking for more documents. In my case, there are no relinquishment documents. There is no court record. I have 4 different last names, and between the Korean adoption documents and the US immigration files, I have 3 birthdays. And it doesn't help that I also had adoptive parents who celebrated my adoption day like another birthday. And then every Korean up until this June celebrated January 1st as everybody's birthday. So that's 4 last names, 5 birthdays, and I'm one person. And yet I am supposed to have a well-adjusted identity formed around that.
How dare you speak poorly of adoption and what in the process of adoption?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. You have 4 birthdays. You have 5 birthdays.
Yeah, you get more presents, right?
Give me my presents.
You got a lot more cupcakes coming.
Oh my God.
A lot more cupcakes.
Well, the problem is that these are not just, my sense of self. Like, there's definitely a mental health impact that goes with it. But these are like, I have at least 2, possibly more, like administrative, like your ID, your driver's license, your passport, your birth certificate, identities that are somehow through this bizarre process, they belong to me, and yet I am one person because of some of the accusations in the TRC claim include things like identity laundering.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's hard to know what's true, and it's hard to trust, and it's hard to feel any sense of security or self-assurance when you have 4 birthdays and 4 last names and 5 birthdays and everything in between.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's obviously a lot, and it's different shades of fresh to you, and certainly fresh to your body. Even if your brain has moved on, your body is still trying to catch up. I'm curious, how do you feel about Korea now?
I think that the claims in the TRC case are pretty horrific. I mean, there's 56 different human rights abuses that are named in the claim that are under investigation. In that checklist, I mean, we're always told, like, you should be so grateful. You're so lucky to be adopted. I think that moment of filling out that form was probably the first time where I was like, oh shit, I am so lucky because of the number of boxes that I did not have to check.
Yeah.
So, like my feelings are very mixed, very, very mixed. And I think that most countries have good parts to their history and bad parts to their history. But
Not
until you
America.
take it as a whole, like the thing that I was explaining just the other day to another adoptee is that it feels like with the TRC case, we would not be submitting these claims now unless we had some degree of confidence in the current government, in the citizens who live here, their ability to understand and support us. Had we done this back when all of these crimes happened, I mean, we couldn't because we were children, but had somebody tried that then, they probably would not have had a very good life after that, or a life after that, because I think the authoritarian years were very, very dark and heavy-handed. And so it says a lot about how far Korea has come. But until there is an understanding of what happened, adoptees were not the only people who were subjected to this process. I mean, human rights don't happen in a vacuum. It happened to our biological families. It happened to the neighborhoods. It happened to the citizens who lived here, who still remember it and aren't able to talk about it. And until we acknowledge that darker past, those heroes who built the democracy we have today are unacknowledged. They die without legacy in the shadows, and that's not fair. They've fought too hard.
Yeah.
So
you're the
it's
best.
like a very mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that's good. I think that part of the narrative around adoption is like this concept, like of unconditional love, right? So you are supposed to love a person no matter where they've come from, no matter what their race, no matter what their background. But if we're not able to acknowledge the worst parts of what humans do to each other, I don't think it's possible to have anything that's unconditional. Like that itself, like, places the condition, like we're only going to love the happy things, the comfortable things.
Yeah. It's not unconditional love. Isn't love without consequences. It's not love without seeing fullness. It's unconditional in spite of all the things. I have loved listening to you talk these past couple of minutes, especially because, like, I think for the three of us as the host of the show, we're just like, I don't want to ask any more questions. Like, you keep giving me, at least for me, you keep giving me things that I just want to like sit with and like just be present in. And so I'm so grateful for your thoughtfulness and your ability to really take the holistic approach that we try to bring to every show into where you are now. One of the things that I remember reading in your press bio was that you graduated with a degree in architecture and then went into like political science and like international relations. And also you're a professional eater. Can you help me through what that
arc happened?
Look at you.
Okay.
Can you?
So the architecture thing, I wanted to do something creative, always gravitated towards the arts. And then as soon as I hit high school, was about to go to college, my parents were like, yeah, that's great, but you can't make any money at it. And so therefore, if you want any help or support, you need to pick a real major with a real job at the end of it. So I was like, architecture. Also, like, stupidly, naively, like the puppy in the flower field. I was like, okay, much harder than I thought it would be. And I applied for an internship with the federal government's like real estate management agency. And so I did that. And the reason I got that job, I think there's an important lesson in this story. I was the least qualified candidate, according to my boss on the first day. And I was like, why did you hire me then? And he was like, because you were the only person who took the time to spell check your resume. So he told me if I could take ownership of the things that I do know, then he believed that he could teach me, or it was possible for me to learn the things that I didn't know. And I think there's an important lesson in that. And, he's still somebody I admire a lot. So that's how I started with government work. And then it's a little bit like musical chairs in government. You kind of move from one agency to another. Sometimes you go back and forth between the public sector and the private sector, but it's kind of the same people. And I mean, the revolving door in politics is a bit controversial on its own. But it was something that I really enjoyed doing for a long time because I felt like I was contributing something positive to the world around me. Like most of my work focused on airports or border crossings. So literally like building the connections between countries and people. And so that's how I started with that. And then the competitive eating was also kind of an accident. I went for what I thought was a local eating contest. It turned out it was a qualifying event for a contest that was broadcast in 14 countries, and Takeru Kobayashi was the headliner for the final round, and I was the only woman at the table. And so that is how I started competitive eating, and it got real strange, man. Like I would go to meetings, and there would be like representatives from like the Department of State, and the first thing they would ask me is, how many hot dogs did you eat?
Wild.
So totally wild. But there is like, I think a huge amount of diplomacy that happens around food. Like usually if there's a diplomatic visit, a lot of times there's food, there's drinks that are exchanged between countries, and it is something that builds bridges in a different way. So if I look at the theme of my career and what I've done, I think the focus has always just been in building connections between people and cultures and things that people don't always see the connections between.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've definitely heard that food is, like you said, is a connector. And I have to go back to that. So you had no experience in competitive eating before that competition? Or you trained a little bit before?
You just saw a sign on the window and it was just like, you're like, competition this way. You're like, okay.
Yeah. Like when I say I saw a sign, like some people were like, you mean from God? And I'm like, no, it was a literal sign that said eating contest.
Exquisitely clean bathrooms? I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's an element of that. And then there's also kind of this undercurrent now, looking at the context of everything I've learned about the adoption history. I think it's played more heavily into the eating than I even realized, because some of the other accusations in the TRC case are about how some of the adoption homes experimented with nutrition and only fed the babies who had adoption deposits on them. So some of the adoptees, some of their adoptive families are reporting that they arrived in receiving countries malnourished, extremely sick. I know that was not the case for me, but in my case, I also had a senator who who helped my adoption along in the process, and I don't think it's a coincidence that I arrived in healthy, good condition, just based on kind of comparatively others who made the trip around that same time frame. And I think that, part of it is like, okay, I've worked so hard. Like it takes so much to become a professional eater, especially like at this level. But then it's also like, did I actually choose that, or are people seeing like a really bizarre trauma response? Because if the kids in the adoption home, the babies around me were starving, then of course, like when you're given food, you're going to eat as much as you can, as quickly as you can. And so now I'm left questioning, like, did I actually choose this for myself? And that's really difficult. And then there's the identity issues too. I know that citizenship and adoptees also tends to be one of the most commonly talked about issues on your show. And if you look at history, there's different ways that citizenship has been defined and the rights of citizenship. And historically, one of those was the right to food. So you can have citizenship by birth, you can have citizenship by country, or you can have citizenship, for example, like if you're going to have a conquering army somewhere, of course you want them to be well fed. So that comes into play too. So there's a certain degree of pursuing things in the spotlight because there's this part of me where it's like, maybe someday my biological family will see me and I won't be invisible.
Yeah.
Which is like the child, that's like little Mary. Like the adult realizes that's like, there's all kinds of issues with that, but those beliefs kind of carry into our adulthood in some strange ways sometimes. And then there's also, okay, well, if I eat hot dogs on the most American day at an event where everything looks like the US flag just like exploded everywhere. Like how
just tumbleweeded all over the place.
How much more? Like it's the thing, it's like that proves I am American to some degree. Like I belong here.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's really strange. But this year I'm gonna be Korean.
So representing Korea for the competition.
Korea for the competition. That's cool. Which is cool because it feels like ownership. It feels like reclaiming identity to a certain degree. You know, taking back something that was mine, that was essentially stolen without my consent. But then it's like, wait, this is also the country that allowed all of this stuff to happen. So it's a very mixed, supercharged thing.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. It's complicated.
And in the middle of it, you're just throwing down some hot dogs.
Yeah. So the competition, I guess, of course, we should mention if people don't understand that we're talking about is the Nathan's famous hot dog eating contest on July 4th. It's going to be men's and women's divisions and televised, as you said,
broadcast across many ESPNs.
countries. And on top of that, you said you're also involved in some other some other campaigns, like the 16 for 16.
Yeah. So I'm trying to set this year. I'm trying to set a new best, making the most of things, trying to always find that resolution, that balancing point of like, how do I make all the pieces fit together and make sense? So this year, in my Coney Island quest, I am aiming for a new personal best of 16 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. One for each of the adoptees in my case group with the TRC claim. My case was grouped together with 15 other adoptees from the US and Australia. And those claims all come from the Eastern Social Welfare Society Adoption Agency. And that's kind of why they were grouped together the way that they were. So we're calling it 16 for 16. And you can follow some adoptee stories. A little bit about the TRC, but I think also it's just really important for people to see us as human, to understand a little bit more about the adoptee experience. So we'll be kind of featuring some of those discussions that we've been having within our group. as part of that campaign. And then along with that, as Patrick had mentioned a little bit earlier, it is not just Korea and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission who have launched investigations into Korean adoptions, but several other governments around the world have also undertaken investigations, including Denmark, Norway, Sweden. France has already closed an adoption agency for good. Wow. Because of the results of their findings. So along with the 16 for 16 campaign, people can sign a petition to ask that US Congress also launch an investigation into the historical process of Korean adoptions and some of the concerns around it, alongside other government bodies around the world.
I'm not even part of this. I'm just following it, and I'm part of the adoptee community. Just pissing me off right now. Mike's just so mad. I'm not mad at you. Obviously, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at everyone else. So
yeah, here's the other thing. So one of the reasons, and I think it's important to explain this, one of the reasons that a lot of adoptees were like, I didn't even know this was happening. I didn't know I could submit a claim. There was a deadline for the TRC's commission in order to be part of the investigation. However, the adoptees who were aware, I think I had 3 days to get all of my stuff together. So really quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So we're very aware, like there's an estimated 200,000 adoptees who have been through this same process to varying degrees of severity or success. And so we asked the commission and the investigators if other adoptee cases could be submitted as supporting evidence towards these larger issues, because they are systemic. This is not just me.
Right.
I think my tendency is to self-gaslight and be like, oh no, I'm going crazy. This can't be real. But then you have the validation of several hundred, several thousand other adoptees. So if you have had the chance to, or the privilege of getting access to your adoption records, whether true or not, they are something that can be submitted to help the larger claim, this 56 human rights violations that are being investigated. And I think the overall goal of the TRC and of all of the Korean rights groups is that this is addressed systemically. It's important that each of the individual adoptees gets justice in their case, but we understand like it is a much, much bigger picture with a lot more serious implications for a lot more people. So if you are a Korean adoptee, I encourage you, go through your paper. It's not an easy process to just read some of that stuff too. So if you have your documents, I recommend doing it in bits and pieces, as you feel ready. But know that now is a good time to do it, because there are so many advocates in this space who are truly trying to address some of the systemic issues.
Yeah, Mary, I really appreciate you sharing all that and sharing not only a little bit of background and history of what's happening currently and how we got to this point, but also how that's affected you personally and your personal role in this. Mm-hmm. And also laying out these ways that we as a community can help to support and move this forward. Because at the end of the day, this might feel like, okay, we're coming up on not an ending, but closure for some. But actually, this is just the beginning. This is a page turned in our community and the history of what adoption is, what it means to be an adoptee, and how we go about dressing that, and how we go about normalizing what that is for us within the wider discourse of just society in general. So thank you so much for having this conversation, being willing to sit down and really dig in and dive in and be vulnerable with us here. That's something I can speak for both my co-hosts when I say that it hit us hard, I think, as I've been watching their reactions to some of the things that you shared. And I know that it's going to leave an impact for our audience because this is a story that we need to be telling and need to be telling more often. We're going to link to every single thing that we've talked about here in the show notes. People will be able to find that. Before we jump to our really fun food portion, where can people listening right now follow along with your specific journey when 16 for 16 comes out? Where can they find all of that information?
So they can find me on my social media at Eat Be Merry. As always, there is a little bit of a change in tone here, which we've discussed a lot today. I love the happy food stuff, so I'm glad that's our next conversation. But so you can always find me there. You can follow the hashtag 16 for 16. If you want to post pictures of yourself, your families, some of your adoptee stories, that adds momentum to that campaign as well. Like, I really, really want to hear from other adoptees. And then, of course, you can follow, AUSKRG.com will have the petition link. And you can also find out exactly what's happening in the TRC case on the 16 cases that I'm hoping to represent through this process. And then, of course, the original DKRG, where all of it started, their website has a lot of information as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You know, I've got a lot more to say, and I'm sure we're going to have you back on, but especially as this unfolds a little bit more. You know, this is an ongoing conversation, something we're going to continue to talk about amongst ourselves, and something I hope we can continue to talk about here on this show. But for right now, we need to stick some hot dogs in our mouth. So, I don't have the soundboard, so I'm like, so we'll be right back with a very fun food snack portion time right after this.
Welcome back to the Janchi Show food portion, and a special food portion because I'm ready to see Patrick eat some hot dogs. That sounds weird, actually.
I'm not the person here that we're here to see eat the hot dogs, I don't think.
I mean, this is an audio podcast, so technically no one is here to see anything.
That's 100% true.
But I know Mary is going to impress us with some tips and skills as a professional eater. Yeah. How actually, sorry, I should rephrase that. Is that
how to call yourself?
Yeah. What is your terminology for that? Because we'll talk about it in the actual interview part.
Yeah. So the names for professional eaters range from weapons of mass consumption to regurgitators to professional eaters or competitive eaters. So you could use a variety of phrases.
Is that any mastication puns in there?
There should be, yeah, because I feel like weapons of mass consumption. I kind of like the direction of it, but the mastication piece might have a little bit more word alliteration. It has more rhythm, more flow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, although our snack today is not Korean by origin, it is a hot dog that, as we were just talking about, the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. So that's why we decided to do hot dogs today. And honestly, I mean,
what you're in Korea. Say about a hot dog?
Yeah, I know but you're in Korea currently. So what can you tell us about hot dogs in Korea?
Oh yeah, what's the Korean hot dog?
Is there something different Corn that we don't know?
Yeah. So I feel like the American side of me is absolutely horrified and offended by the hot dog situation here because it's usually like a corn dog, which is great. They're awesome. Sometimes they have the French fries like on top of the corn dog, and then they double fry it, so it's delicious. Where they lose me is when they cover it with powdered sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, powdered sugar.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes they use granulated sugar, but I can't do it. And they seem rather concerned that I'm not interested in the sugar.
Especially stereotypically with Americans, we do like sugar, right? So
we do, but it's like they put it on their hot dogs, they put it on the garlic bread. So I feel like, So Korean history, I actually looked up, why is there so much sugar in Korean food? Turns out, after the Korean War, one of the first businesses to kind of restart industry in Korea was a sugar refinery. And so,
really?
So people were encouraged to consume sugar to kind of rebuild the economy. That sugar company is still in operation, and it is now known probably more widely known as Samsung.
Wow,
interesting.
So they still own a food conglomerate, and there's several subsidiaries underneath that conglomerate. But
well, now their refrigerators make much more sense to me.
Wow,
a successful business is a diversified business. That's my motto.
Hey, that is true. There's a lot of companies who own very interesting companies that you wouldn't expect them to own. So
that is the story on Korean hot dogs and the sugar that comes with them.
So I'm a big fan of the corn dog, and I told this story when we came back from Arizona. But I went to a place in Flagstaff that was a Korean corn dog store, and they had one that was coated in flaming hot powder.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Ooh, that sounds good.
It was delicious.
I'd be down for that.
It was terrible after the fact, but it was really good.
Spice in, spice
initially
out.
on the eat. So
I would say next time you're in Arizona, you have to try a Sonoran style dog. So instead of a bun, they have like the Mexican salt bread, and then they put like beans and salsa and guacamole and sour cream, and it is delicious.
That sounds pretty good.
I think the only place that does a hot dog better than Arizona is Chicago.
Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
I'm here for that.
So then that is your favorite. That is
the Chicago
style dog. Okay.
Oh yeah. You got the sport peppers, I have no idea what is in that neon green relish. I probably don't want to know, but it's magical. And definitely no ketchup.
Yeah.
Gotta have no ketchup.
Oh, that's hard for me. I love ketchup on hot dogs. That's
I'm excited for this particular food portion because I really enjoy hot dogs, and I feel like I eat them well.
You eat them
I've
well.
never learned from someone who eats them professionally.
Okay.
I need to know. I'm ready to learn some tips. I'm ready to learn the best
What's a
appropriate
level up
way
his
to
game?
eat this. I feel like, I'm just trying to level up.
I'm just gonna eat my hot dog while those tips are being delivered.
Yeah.
So like a leisurely kind of, okay.
Just real chill for me over here.
There are a couple of different methods that you can use in a hot dog eating contest. One is called the Solomon method. So you break the hot dog in half and then eat the two halves at the same time.
That's tragic.
That was made by Takeru Kobayashi, was the first guy to break the 40 hot dog mark in competition. He's the innovator who made the Solomon method a thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I can
you
probably
can
do
try that. Then there's also the Joey Jaws method, which is top ranked athlete. Like no athlete holds more titles than Joey Chestnut. He does 2 meats, 2 buns. So
at the same
2
time?
hot dogs. Yeah. No. So the speed here is just insane. Like
okay, I got you.
I think his record's like 76 hot dogs.
Holy crap!
Yeah. 10-minute contest does not count if you do not eat the corresponding bun. So he'll take the hot dogs out of the bun, do 2 hot dogs, then two buns. But while he's eating the hot dogs, he's dunking his buns in the liquid.
Yeah. I have seen that. It helps get it down, right? So that it's not as dry.
Yeah. So if you were chewing the bun, you are doing something wrong. You should be drinking.
Yeah, my jaw is tired eating this single bun. So, but I found I probably don't have a regulation bun. So,
true. I'm using a brioche, so I'm all over the place over here.
I don't know what this is. Wonder
no,
White.
brioche is not.
That's all I had.
Is like too
Terrible.
heavy.
Terrible
Too
choice.
heavy.
Patrick, I think you got a hoagie bun.
No,
I have
like
no idea.
I have
I
the
literally
foot
just
long
got
with
it at the
the
store.
pretzel bread today. So
Damn, that was good.
yeah, it's like got cheese and everything. So.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
So you said you're supposed to be drinking your bun. If you chew it, you're doing it wrong. Does that mean in the Solomon method, when you break it in half, are you dunking directly into water and then going into your mouth? Or does the half of the bun just kind of go and dissolve once you shove it in?
Yeah, so you should take the hot dog out of the bun. If you eat them together, you're probably going to choke because the textures are really different.
You might. I probably would choke.
Yeah, so the current female champion, her method for the hot dogs is kind of like bite, but not all the way through the dog. She'll bite just enough to make it kind of flexible and then swallow the whole hot dog.
Whoa.
Wow. That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that works.
So do not try this at home. This is the big disclaimer too. We always have EMTs that are like right there.
Yeah, because that's a lot of hot dogs a minute. And
I
did not eat it that quickly, but it was good. I grilled mine for the listeners at home, and I'm the only one who maybe had the time to grill it, but it was good. So, and also I did get a Nathan. Wait, what's the brand? Nathan's
Famous.
Mm-hmm. Famous. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Pretty solid. The last hot dog I had was probably just like a basic Oscar Mayer hot dog, and this one is this is quality. And I like a hot dog. But it was good. So. Yeah, 5 out of 5
thing happens.
for me.
Yeah, like a weird thing happens. So about 2 to 3 minutes into the contest, you cannot taste anything.
I thought you were going to say you question every choice that you made.
You question your existence.
Oh yeah, it's like I question my life, but that's about minute 5. Like,
okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're like, it's almost done, right? And you're like, no, you're halfway through. Like,
yeah, so the arc for the contest, like I get all amped up, I get excited, I go in feeling great, and then we call it the wall. You hit that wall and you're like, God, this eating contest was a regrettable choice. And then it progresses to my life is probably just a regrettable choice. And then the last minute is when the crowd really starts going, they get excited, and that's when things get fun again. So
it's like, how much energy do you get from the crowd, like in that last minute? Like, what does that swell feel like?
Oh my God, there's 40,000 people in the live crowd.
Okay, that's
so
like
10%. It's a lot of people screaming at you to just like stuff your face. It's amazing. It's a bit of a rush, yeah. But I think what hits me is the crash afterwards, because you get that adrenaline going, and then you're feeling great, and it's like you get. I would compare it to a sugar high, but we do not put sugar on our hot dogs. But it's like an ultimate sugar rush. All the calories, all the adrenaline, and then it's gone. Like it's gone really fast. And I've heard that Olympians and marathon runners actually kind of experience the same thing. So kind of like a runner's high.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm pretty impressed that you're eating a hot dog casually with us, given that it is your profession and you eat a lot of them. But one of the things that we do on the show is we rate our snack. I gave mine a 5 out of 5. I'm curious, what type of hot dog do you have, and what do you rate it out of 5?
Okay, so I have the cheesy pretzel bread on the foot-long hot dog. So
on a foot-long hot dog?
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Oh, split it in half.
Yeah, mine was also not a foot long, so yeah, all right.
But I can't really talk to you and accomplish, two at a time. So I would say the pretzel bread is a little on the sweet side for me. Still, I don't think they put sugar in it, but it does kind of have a little bit of a sweetness to it that I wouldn't expect in pretzel bread, but I'm enjoying the cheese. So out of 10, I'd say like an 8.
All right.
Okay.
8 out of 10 for the pretzel bag cheese dog.
Yeah.
From Korea/Japan? No, you said that one's Korean.
Yeah. This one's Korean. Okay. Yeah.
So out of you already said Sonoran was one of your favorite. Chicago. Have you ever had anything remotely like Korean fusion on it, like say kimchi or something on a hot dog?
Oh, yeah. Kimchi and hot dogs. Man, that's that's the best. I know a lot of people like sauerkraut, but oh no, sauerkraut's like the baby kimchi. Like, Koreans like rinse off the spice. Yeah, like Koreans will rinse off the spiciness or make a different version of kimchi for their babies to kind of like get them used to the flavor. And I'm like, that's sauerkraut.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you want to graduate to the next level, that's when you have the kimchi dog.
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Perfect. Well,
to have one.
My hot dog was a pretty
Did you
good one.
microwave it?
I used brioche. I microwaved it and then put some cheese. I put some spicy pepper jack cheese on it. So,
Nice.
made it more of a cheese dog. But I would give mine a 4 out of 5 the way I made it. So
I would give yours a 4 out of 5 the way you made it too. It's not great.
Not as authentic. It's not my best hot dog. I'm just I was going to be truthful on that.
Not my best.
It's not my best
sure.
hot dog.
Like, I'm not sure which is worse, the microwave or the brioche.
Yeah.
Some hot takes
Coming hard
from Mary
for the
right
brioche.
now. Patrick, bring it home.
My hot dog is good. It's I consider my hot dog a 5 out of 5. I'm a super basic guy. Like, if I'm making it myself, but I pan fried it. I bought a bun from the store. It is white bread. And I put one strip of mayonnaise. And I put one strip of mayonnaise on it because I like mayo on my hot dog. And I feel like that's a rare thing. So
It's like Japanese
Your
style.
Midwest is showing.
I'm Midwest.
Okay.
I Midwest the shit out of it. So
Okay, the easier question is, what do you not put mayonnaise in?
ooh, that's a harder question. What do I not put mayonnaise in?
Pizza?
That's what I'm saying. That's
Fruit?
Pizza
With
fruit? Yeah, fruit would probably be
Yeah.
good. I have seen. So you're from the Midwest. There's been fruit salads that have a Miracle Whip in it.
This is true.
Oh,
That's
gross.
disgusting in my opinion. So
Some of them have Miracle Whip and mayonnaise. I've seen that.
yeah,
That doesn't sound very good to me.
It's
And the only ingredients that's missing that makes it more Midwest is like tater tots and Jello.
Yeah, it's like, can you make it a casserole somehow and then layer it?
Classic Midwest.
Well,
all right.
This has been fun. Mary, again, if you would like to repeat, where can people find you on the internet, and if they want to contact you and get in touch?
Well, definitely they can catch me on the 4th of July on ESPN and ESPN3. I think ESPN Classic runs like all of the years of contest up till now as well. So pretty much the 4th of July, turn on the TV, I'll be there. But in between times, in between contests, people can always find me at Eat Be Merry on social media or on my website, which is also Eat Be Merry.
Eat Be Merry.
Eat Be Merry.
Well, this has been great. As always, you can find us Janchi Show on all the platforms. You can email us janchishow@gmail.com.
You got this, Nathan.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember them all. You can go to janchishow.com, support us with all the you can call us. Oh gosh, 972-677-8867.
Nice.
Leave us a voicemail because you never know what we will air it on the show. I'm on Instagram at nnowalk.
I'm at KJ Relke, wherever I want to be found on the internet.
And I am at Patrick in the World. Wherever I want to be found on the internet.
Yes.
And at Patrick in the World, since you have the white bread bun, do you have a glass of water available nearby?
I actually do have a glass of water that I was drinking, but I suppose I could probably dunk my hot dog in it. Wait, do I have to take the hot dog out of the bun?
You take the hot dog out of the bun, and then you dunk the bun.
Man,
You want to give it a try?
Soggy mayonnaise bread. I don't know.
All right. Well, that sounds like
Different water for that. We'll say that's a piece of content that'll come out at Janchi Show on the social platforms.
All right.
Just be on the lookout for that.
Amazing. Thank you, Mary, so much for talking with us and for sharing your story and eating a hot dog with us and challenging challenging Patrick to dunk his mayo bun in water. For the rest of you listeners, until next week, Janchi, heyo!